All right, today we are gonna be talking about the big M. Not that one though, that's the wrong M. We're gonna be talking about that M. I've never really made a video before talking about modern. Like, I don't think I've ever really covered this before, despite the game being out for a very long time. So I wanted to have a quick chat about some modern stuff, and why now? Why have I waited until like over a year after the game came out to talk a bit about modern? And the reason for that is that this weekend, if you guys didn't catch it, it was CEO, Community Effort Orlando. And among all of the warriors fighting for their place in this stacked-ass tournament, there was one modern user that was kind of cooking people, and that man's name is Tachikawa. So if you guys didn't catch it, Tachikawa is a modern Ed player. He's one of the few players that's gone all in on modern. And this was him playing in top 24 against Flash Metroid. He's getting pressured. He's getting pressured. It's looking bad for Flash Metroid. Gets the EXDP. Drops the level 1 and then bam. Modern problems requiring modern solutions. Quote from Saint Cola. This is a classic modern situation right here. The level 1 straight on the EX blankable. So after this all wrapped up, I think Tachikawa must have watched back the replay on stream and seen the degenerates in Twitch chat, because he followed it up by making this tweet. Tachikawa said, what do you think about modern? When I'm playing on stream in CEO, I often saw modern hate on chat in English, LOL. Sometimes Japanese say the same thing, but I have the impression that people overseas hate it more. And I won't highlight it, but yes, if you go back and watch the replay of all of Tachikawa's match, there was a lot of people crapping on modern controls, modern reactions, all that kind of stuff. Chat is pretty toxic. I mean, this is why I never watch back my own replays with chat visible. Even if you completely obliterate your opponent on stream, even if you win, you can always glance over at chat and you'll see like Bobby Basketball 1999 calling you a scrub. But anyway, let's talk a bit about modern. My personal thoughts on modern is that I think it's been a net positive for the game, but I also have some mixed feelings about it. I have some criticisms. So let's kind of like go over the good and the bad. Is modern good? Is it bad? Is it healthy for the game? Let's have a look. So let's start with the good. Let's start with the positive. I think modern has successfully managed to create an environment where beginner players are able to overcome the mashing gap. Let me ask you guys a question. How many of you, in the past, prior to Street Fighter 6, how many of you have recommended a fighting game to a friend and this has happened? They buy the game and they do this. And then they do that for about 4 hours, and they go, this isn't much fun, I don't really know what I'm doing, and it's too hard to learn, and then they quit. And you look at their Steam profile, and that game that they paid $60 for will be eternally stuck at 4 hours of playtime. Because, I mean, fighting games, as we know, they expect a lot of knowledge from a beginner. Most games are designed where the moment that you boot up the game nowadays, you can do cool shit straight away. You press square and your character does like a triple backflip or whatever. Fighting games are notoriously hard to get into. So what I like about modern controls is they have sort of created a easier on-roading system for new players where they can kind of get past the initial mashing phase more easily without having to learn how to do like proper inputs and proper DPs and stuff. So in that sense, I think it's really good. Lots of people who are not legacy fighting game players have said to me that they probably only got into Street Fighter starting with 6 because of modern. Because they can start to play the actual game. Because this is not Street Fighter. If you are doing this, you are not playing Street Fighter. This is not Street Fighter. This is Street Fighter. And modern has enabled new players to get there quicker and easier and more effectively. Damn, someone just made a Bobby Basketball 1999 account just for that joke. Was that worth it? You spent all that time registering an email address for that shitty ass joke? Fuck me, what a waste of time. When you're on your deathbed and the last DMT is hitting your brain at age 94 and you briefly have to relive every moment of your life, the 2 minutes that you spent making that account are gonna be fucking agony. Don't edit this out, we'll see. Where was I? You guys knocked me off track again. Alright, let's talk another thing about modern. More modern positivity. Street Fighter 6. If you don't know, this game is popping off in Japan right now. The game is pulling crazy numbers and the streams regularly have like tens of thousands of viewers. Okay, so here's an example. So there was an event recently in Japan, if you guys have been following this, it's called the Crazy Raccoon Cup, which is basically like a sort of community event where a bunch of streamers and VTubers and like sort of Japanese online celebrities all come together for a Street Fighter team tournament. And this thing has been doing insane numbers. This was the recent Twitch directory for Street Fighter 6. 313,000 viewers for this game, which made it, by the way, this made it the #1 most watched game on all of Twitch when it was happening. It was #1 in the Twitch directory. Japan is carrying Street Fighter 6 on its back right now. And why am I talking about this right now? There's a lot of reasons for this insane viewership. Obviously, like, there's big VTubers involved, big streamers, and they're all kind of like sharing their existing audiences for an event like this. That's partly the reason why. But I actually think an event like this would not work if modern controls didn't exist. I genuinely think a lot of this success of these kind of events comes down to modern controls. Because, like, have you guys ever watched those variety streamer tournaments in the past? Like in the Street Fighter 5 era, when they would get all of the big streamers to do like a Twitch Rivals or whatever, and it was absolutely unwatchable because in previous games, whenever you put like, I don't know, all these like big variety streamers into a fighting game and you tell them you're going to play in a tournament 1 week from now, good luck, they all just do this. They go to the character select screen, they find the most degenerate character for beginners, and they go, oh look, this guy, the Sumo Man. Sumo Man looks cool. And then they just do this. And like, even if you really enjoy watching the streamers, I think those kinds of things are borderline unwatchable. Because they're not learning the game. They're just trying to figure out which character is gonna get them a win with like one special. I'm not expecting them to become pro players overnight. But they're not even like engaging with the game when that happens. They're not even really playing Street Fighter. They're just hitting buttons. So again, one of the really nice things about modern controls is that a lot of these tournaments, like the one that I just showed, like Crazy Raccoon Cup, they allow variety streamers and beginners to play in these sort of events, but the gameplay actually does look like Street Fighter. Again, you know, this is not people mashing, this is actual Street Fighter. So, yeah, I think modern has enabled this. Anyway, just to give you an idea of what's going on. Oh, I guess one last positive I'll say about modern controls before we move over is that it's actually really well balanced competitively. Like, it varies from character to character a little bit, but most modern characters are viable. Some are even on par with their classic equivalent. Like, I think that modern Luke is really good. Probably as good as classic Luke. Modern Lily, I think, is as good as classic Lily. And probably modern Chun. I think modern Chun is also really good. The rest of the characters, I would say, most of them are slightly worse. Some of them are quite a bit worse, like Aki, for example. People ask me if they should play modern Aki. I almost always say no, because modern Aki is really bad this season, relative to classic Aki. Ed, yeah, obviously, we've just been talking about Tachikawa. But the thing is that all of these are viable. None of these are, like, unusable. They're all slightly worse than their classic versions, but the important thing is that none of them are better. I don't think there's a single character on this list where the modern version is actually stronger than the classic version, which I gotta give Capcom credit for. Like, they've created a system that benefits new players, but it hasn't impacted competitive integrity. Now, let's talk about some of the things about Modern that I don't like. We've given Modern its props. Now I'm going to be a little bit critical of some stuff I don't like about Modern. And we're going to start off with what I think is kind of like damaging to being a spectator. I think Modern is kind of anti-hype in some ways. Let me just go back to that clip that I showed right at the start. So we started out with this clip. And do you guys notice that whenever something like this happens, whenever there's like a tournament match where a Modern player does something cool, there's like this initial burst of hype where people are like, holy shit, he intercepted the Blanka ball with super. And then there's like the moment where the penny drops afterwards and you're like, oh wait, it's Modern. He just pressed 2 buttons. You know, it's not that complicated. There's that, oh right, it's Modern moment where you're just like, oh, that wasn't as cool as I first thought it was. That happens a lot. You can hear almost like the commentators deflate a little bit when they realize that it was Modern. Because if this was Classic, intercepting Blanka ball with a super like this, that would be very, very hard to do on reaction. But it's significantly easier in Modern, and I feel like the execution is part of the hype. It's not just doing something, it's like what went into the actual mechanics of doing it. So another thing that I'm not too fond of about Modern is the way that it kind of changes a lot of the core dynamics of Street Fighter 6. And this is particularly noticeable for me as an Aki player. So like, one of the Aki things that I always joke about is that she's the queen of burnout, right? One of Aki's big strengths as a character is that when the opponent is in burnout, you can kind of go to town. You can just maul your opponent, do whatever you want, do all this nonsense, plus frames for days. Like, that's a big part of her playstyle. But I feel like Modern severely changes the risk-reward, especially in situations like Burnout, because this game is designed in a way where Burnout is supposed to be something that you avoid at all costs. You know, Street Fighter 6, at its core, is a resource management game, because Burnout is supposed to be so punishing. You're meant to do everything in your power not to get burned out. But when I have a Modern player in Burnout, I don't really feel like I'm in that much of an advantageous situation. Because it's so easy for them to just, every single time they see me go for like a drive impact, it's really, really easy for a Modern player to just press their super button every single time and just smoke you. Like, I've pretty much given up even trying to stun Modern players. Like, it's just too risky because they have such easy access to a reversal, and cutting out that like processing time of having to think about inputting your reversal and just turning it into like 2 button presses at the same time fundamentally changes a lot of the core risk reward of this game. But again, I want to emphasize that I'm not saying that like Modern is too powerful or anything. I'm just saying that it feels like this game was designed in a certain way, and a lot of those design decisions just don't really apply to Modern players. I guess my last kind of like criticism of Modern is that I feel like Modern can kind of guide players into a kind of, I don't know if the right word for it, like a dead-end play style. Like, there are some people who will start this game as their first Street Fighter game. They'll pick Modern because that's what the game tells them to do, and they will learn a play style which will give them very good results very quickly, but it plateaus extremely fast. Like, how many times have you guys seen this? Let me show you guys a play style. It's Modern Chun is a big, like, very guilty of this. How many times have you guys seen a Modern Chun who just does this? Just walk back, fireball, walk back, fireball, walk back, fireball, and if you jump, 1 button DP. That's Classic Chun too? Not really. Classic Chun is much more active than that. I'm talking about players who do nothing else. They don't even try and poke with normals. They never try and go for footsies. They never poke with normals. All they ever do is fireball, walk backwards, fireball, DP the jump. Nothing else. I have seen a lot of players like this, and when they have this game plan, they will rapidly get to master. Even as complete beginners, I've seen Chuns like this who will go from never touching a Street Fighter game to master rank extraordinarily fast, and then they just get completely hard stuck. Because once they encounter players who don't just keep jumping the fireballs and just walk them down, like, once they encounter this kind of a situation where someone's just able to walk and block and they're not constantly trying to jump the fireballs, they just walk themselves to the corner. And because of the way that the game has taught them to play, because of the way that Modern has kind of like shaped their playstyle, they haven't developed any of the sort of like wider game knowledge that you need to know to understand, like, you know, spacing, how to fight your way out of the corner, how to stop your opponent walking forward, these kinds of things. Classic players kind of like are forced to learn these things over time, but I feel like Modern can kind of like allow you to almost skip core elements of Street Fighter and develop a playstyle which will give you blind spots, if that makes sense. So yeah, it leads to some players with very weird strengths and very weird weaknesses. Like, I've played players who are like, you know, master or even high master rank, like 1800, 1900 MR, who have some aspects of their game which are like absolutely incredible. Their anti-airs are flawless, their fireballs are really good, but at the same time, they're also missing kind of the usual checkpoints you'd have to know to reach that level of play. Their defensive choices are very weird. Their risk reward is very weird. Their like space control and movement is very weird. And it's like they've invested all their stat points into very specific things while sort of missing the big picture. And I feel like that's partly because Modern pushes you in that direction. Yeah, it kind of handicaps your progression if you don't know any better. But anyway, let's just wrap this up real quick. I think that's the good, that's the bad. I think, as I said at the start, ultimately, Modern has done exactly what it was supposed to do. It created an on-ramp for beginners to more easily start playing what I would call real Street Fighter. But at the same time, it hasn't damaged the competitive integrity of the game. So even though I have some critiques, which I just went over, I do think it's ultimately a good thing for the game. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think Modern is good? Do you think it's bad? Do you think it's healthy for the game? Or you think it damages the game? Let me know down in the comments section. And I will see you guys in the next video.